Have you ever walked away from a woman and felt emptier than before you met her? You didn't lose money, you didn't lose time, you lost yourself, but you couldn't explain how, not with words. It's like she reached into your chest and took something, not forcefully, but silently, without ever asking. And the worst part? You gave it to her, not because she demanded it, but because you didn't know how not to. You tried to impress, you spoke too much, you tried to prove yourself, to show her you were different, to make her see your value. But the more you tried, the less she respected you. Why? Because a woman isn't moved by how much you say. She's moved by how little you need to. She doesn't crave your words. She studies your reactions. And when you can't stop reacting, she knows she owns you. You think being loud is powerful? Then why do the strongest men speak the least? You think being kind is what wins her? Then why do the most indifferent men stay in her mind? What if everything you were taught about power was dead wrong? Because the truth is this: silence is strength, not the silence of weakness, the silence of certainty, the kind of silence that holds a woman's gaze and makes her nervous, because she can't read you, can't control you, can't break you. This isn't a tactic, this is a transformation. And if you want to understand why the quietest man in the room holds the most power, then stay, because by the end of this video, you'll never chase with words again. You'll let your silence do what your voice never could. What if the strongest move was no move at all? Most men today think power is about presence, loud energy, big statements, flashy style, alpha body language. But real power, the kind that shakes a room without a word, is still. Stillness is not weakness. It's not hesitance. It's not fear. It's restraint. It's mastery. The kind of man who can wait without fidgeting, observe without needing to react, command without raising his voice. Nietzsche understood this deeper than most, because he saw the truth. The man who needs to be seen has already lost. Nietzsche said, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous." But this silence he warns of isn't the stillness of a man in control. It's the silence of a man afraid to speak his truth. What we're talking about here is dominant silence. Picture two men in a room. One talks endlessly, telling stories, cracking jokes, trying to impress. The other, he sits back, speaks little, watches everything. Which one do you think she notices more? Exactly. Modern men have been trained to perform. TikTok bravado, dating apps, high-value scripts. But women, instinctively, don't fall for the man trying to prove he's powerful. They fall for the one who has nothing to prove. You've seen it. A man who barely speaks, and yet people wait for his words. A man who walks into a room, and the energy shifts. Why? Because his stillness isn't empty. It's full of certainty, of composure, of presence. Stillness is the body language of a man who knows who he is. It's threatening, in the best way, because she senses, this man won't chase me. This man won't argue for my affection. This man could walk away and never look back. And that terrifies her, because it's rare. The man who's loud is everywhere, but the man who is still, who watches, waits, measures, holds his center, that man becomes mythic. Women don't dream about men who beg. They dream about the man who haunts, the man they couldn't quite read, the one who felt like he was made of something ancient, unshakable, like a silent mountain no storm could move. That's what stillness is. Not passive, not cold, but so powerful, it needs no explanation. And in today's world, full of noise, self-promotion, emotional chaos, a still man is not just attractive, he's revolutionary. Have you ever said something and immediately wished you hadn't? Most men talk because they're uncomfortable with themselves. They fill the silence not to connect, but to escape. Escape judgment, escape insecurity, escape the terrifying possibility that maybe they're not enough. But Nietzsche would say, that's exactly why you must stop. Talking much about oneself can also be a means to conceal oneself. Men think words make them strong. They think a clever comeback shows power. They think long texts prove loyalty. They think the louder they speak, the more dominant they'll seem. But here's the harsh truth. Weak men talk too much because they're trying to convince not just others, but themselves. They don't own their presence. They try to explain it. And in that explanation, they lose something vital, mystery. When a man speaks without thought, he dissolves his edge. She hears the over-explaining, the approval-seeking, the subtle anxiety masked as confidence, and she loses respect. In a world obsessed with communication, nobody tells men this. Your words can make you invisible, not because you're quiet, but because you sound like every other man, desperate, defensive, directionless. Nietzsche didn't just see this in romantic dynamics, he saw it in society. Men trapped by ideology, men enslaved by dogma, men who parroted beliefs to fit in, but never dared to be. He believed the truly free man speaks rarely, but when he does, the world listens. There's a reason why you remember that one guy who barely said a word, and not the one who wouldn't shut up. It's not charisma, it's not luck, it's containment. A real man knows the cost of every word. He knows that attention is currency, and he spends it like gold. He knows that every sentence reveals his level of mastery, or lack of it, so he chooses wisely. She asks him, "Do you even care about me?" He doesn't launch into a paragraph. He just smiles and says, "I care enough not to prove it." Boom. That's the man she can't forget. Not because he begged for her, but because he didn't need to. Stillness makes your energy dense. Words, if used carelessly, dilute it. Every unnecessary phrase drains your mystery. And when your mystery is gone, your power is gone. Most men drown in their own noise. They want to be heard so badly they forget to be felt. But Nietzsche reminds us, it is not the talking man who dominates the room. It is the man whose silence makes others nervous. So here's the shift. Don't try to impress with volume. Command with presence. Don't explain yourself. Become undeniable. Because in a world of noise, the man who speaks like thunder, only when the moment calls, becomes a goddamn storm. There is a reason she remembers him. The one who didn't chase, didn't explain, didn't try to win her. There is a reason she replays the moments when he didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't blink. And there is a reason she keeps coming back to the silence he left behind. It wasn't that he was the most attractive. It wasn't status. It wasn't charm. It was the energy. Not loud, not needy, not reactive, but sovereign. An energy that did not bend toward her chaos. An energy rooted in stillness. The kind that says without words, "I do not need you to feel whole." This energy cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It comes from depth, from pain transmuted into strength, from hunger burned into clarity, from years of collapsing and rising. It is the energy of a man who no longer flinches when the world turns cold, the one who has made peace with solitude, the one who has walked through hell and decided to stay a while, because he'd rather suffer truth than live addicted to illusion. That's the energy women feel but can't quite name, because everything in her tests it. Her silence, her hot and cold moods, her withdrawal, her praise, her seduction, her accusations, all of it is a test, and most men fail, not because they're weak, but because they need her too much. But when she meets a man who does not orbit her, something inside her is shaken. He doesn't flinch when she gets distant. He doesn't chase when she gets cold. He doesn't explain himself when she accuses him. He doesn't apologize just to keep the peace. He remains, unshaken, clear, whole. That is the energy she cannot control. It's not about being dominant. It's not about alpha posturing. It's deeper than that. It's the force of a man who has mastered his own polarity, who no longer reacts to hers, and it terrifies her. Not because he's cruel, not because he's detached in bitterness, but because he's free, and women can never control a man who is truly free. See, she can play the game with the boys, the ones who argue, prove, beg, perform. She knows their type. She can provoke them and win. She holds the emotional high ground in those dynamics. But the man with this sovereign energy is untouchable, not because he's distant, because he's centered. He doesn't run from her. He doesn't fight her. He simply doesn't need her, and it drives her mad. Because how do you pull power from a man who has stopped leaking it? She will test harder. She will try to get a rise. She will create a storm to see if he drowns, but he won't. He'll watch it rage, then return to stillness. That's the energy she cannot manipulate. That's the energy she desires more than anything. And that is the energy of a man who no longer lives to be chosen. He chooses, not out of craving, not out of fear, but from strength. That is the rarest energy of all, and it leaves the deepest mark. There are only two kinds of men in a woman's life, the ones she remembers and the ones she forgets. And what separates them has nothing to do with looks, money, or charm. It's about gravity, not the kind that pulls her in, the kind that holds firm when she tries to pull away. You see, the man she forgets is predictable. He over-explains. He tries too hard. He misreads her tests as problems to be solved. When she pulls away, he texts. When she goes cold, he panics. He interprets her silence as an emergency rather than an invitation to rise. And the more he tries to win her back, the more she confirms what she suspected all along, that he was never the mountain, just a man dressed as one, a costume of strength, easily peeled away by tension. But the man she remembers, he's something else entirely. She remembers the man who didn't flinch when she withdrew, the one who didn't beg for her attention, didn't try to decode her moods, didn't collapse into performance when she acted distant. He passed her tests not by reacting, but by refusing to acknowledge them as valid. He treated her games like whispers in the wind, heard but irrelevant. Because this man wasn't seeking a woman to complete him, he was already whole. That wholeness is rare, and women never forget rare. Nietzsche understood this perfectly. He said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." That's what makes the sovereign man unforgettable. He operates at an altitude she's not used to. She might not understand him, but she'll never forget him. Because he didn't chase her, he challenged her, without saying a word. Women are wired to test, not out of cruelty, but to find the man who cannot be moved by their chaos, the one who doesn't orbit their emotions. When she meets a man who stays rooted, not in arrogance, but in self-mastery, something ancient stirs in her, respect. And once that seed is planted, attraction has already begun, not because he seduced her, but because he showed her, through silence, stillness, and standards, that he was beyond seduction. And here's the part most men miss. The moment she realizes she can't shake you, she begins to self-correct. Her games soften, her guard lowers, not because you forced it, but because she sees the futility in trying to shake a man who cannot be shaken. The men she forgets are the ones who tried to convince her of their worth. The men she remembers are the ones who simply lived it, calmly, powerfully, and without compromise. You can wear the perfect suit, speak with confidence, lift weights 5 days a week, but if you've lost your center, she'll smell it. Not consciously, not logically, but viscerally, instinctively. Because women aren't just attracted to the man you present, they're drawn to the man you are. And if the man beneath the performance is uncertain, confused, unanchored, no cologne or charisma will cover the stench of self-betrayal. You see, there's a myth men cling to, that they can fake strength, that if they posture hard enough, talk boldly enough, dominate just loud enough, it'll be enough. But women are not deceived by loud men. They are drawn to true men, and true men don't need volume. Nietzsche said, "Every deep thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood." That's because when you've gone deep enough, you no longer seek to prove anything. You've already seen your demons. You've already confronted your chaos. And now you stand as a man who does not need to be seen, because he knows who he is. And that knowing, that's the scent she's hunting. The truth is, a woman doesn't need to know your philosophy. She doesn't care if you've read Nietzsche, Jung, or Machiavelli. She doesn't care how many podcasts you've absorbed. She only cares if those ideas live in your bones, or if you're just parroting words to sound powerful. Women have evolved for millennia to detect authentic masculine presence, not just performative traits. She notices when your eyes scan the room for approval. She hears the subtle panic in your tone when she pulls away. She feels it when your jokes are timed for validation. You think you're in control, but she already knows you've lost the battle the moment your identity starts bending to her reactions. That's why she tests, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. She wants to know, who is this man when I push him? What does he become when I withdraw? Can he hold his frame when I lose mine? And if the answer is no, if you crumble, argue, over-explain, or beg, you've answered her in full. You've told her, I don't know who I am without your approval. And that's the scent of a man who's lost himself. But the man who cannot be shaken, who does not rise to the bait, who does not chase closure, who does not seek reassurance, that man becomes mythical. Because in a world of men who drown in emotional dependency, his calm presence becomes a symbol of something women forgot still existed. The man who does not orbit, the man who does not bend, the man who walks with the silent weight of sovereignty. And once she smells that, she'll never forget it. So here we are, at the edge of everything. Not just the end of this message, but the edge of a choice. Because this silence we've spoken of, it's not a technique. It's not a line to deliver or a mask to wear. It's a transformation, a death, a resurrection. The death of the boy who begged for answers. The death of the man who chased approval. The death of the performer who thought affection was earned through performance. And in his place, something ancient is reborn. The man who doesn't move to be seen. He moves because he chooses. The man who doesn't speak to impress. He speaks only to declare truth. The man who doesn't fear her absence, because his presence is already whole. This is the man women feel before he even enters the room. The man whose silence says more than another man's entire philosophy. And it's not just women who notice. Other men feel it too, because this kind of stillness disrupts the performance of the crowd. You stop being one of the boys and start being a mountain among them. That's why this path isn't easy. It's lonely at first. You'll lose people. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be accused of arrogance, of coldness, of being emotionally unavailable. Let them speak. Because if your silence is rooted in truth, every accusation becomes a confession that you no longer bow, a confession that you are no longer controllable, a confession that you've become the man they can't provoke, can't predict, and most of all, can't replace. And that is the power that cannot be faked. So if this message has stirred something in you, something raw, something ancient, something that never had words until now, then share this with another brother who needs to hear it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support this mission, to awaken millions of men to their quiet power, use the link in the description below. Every click, every share, every gesture of support helps build something far bigger than all of us. We're building a generation of men who don't flinch when tested, who don't chase what's unworthy, who don't apologize for their power, because the weak perform, the loud protest, but the wise, they move in silence, and when they finally speak, the world listens.